Hi everyone, welcome to part 4 of the Master Key System. This book was written in 1910 by Charles Haanel. I own no rights to it. If you want it, find it on the internet. You might be able to find full text there as a PDF, but you can also definitely get it where used books are sold. It's not expensive, it's like less than $2. And if you haven't already seen the first few parts, I would go back and watch them because it builds up bit by bit. So you'll listen to this part 4 and things start to get life changing here when you start doing this. And I'll give you a couple tips for at least what worked for me at the end. When you start doing it and you incorporate this mental muscle you're building into your everyday life, it definitely has long reaching effects when it comes to your mental health, your mood, your happiness, and so on. So let's get into it. By the way, I'm in New Orleans this week. Got this little cherub sitting on my shoulder right here. This building is hundreds of years old behind me. We're in a converted condo and warehouse district. So cool. I apologize for the background noise. It's pretty loud in the city, but hopefully it's not too disturbing to your focus. So get comfy. Let's get into part 4. First, we'll do the introduction to part 4. Here we go. Enclosed herewith, I hand you part 4. This part will show you why what you think or do or feel is an indication of what you are. Thought is energy, and energy is power, and it is because all the religions, sciences, and philosophies with which the world has heretofore been familiar have been based upon the manifestation of this energy instead of the energy itself, that the world has been limited to effects, while causes have been ignored or misunderstood. For this reason, we have God and the devil in religion, positive and negative in science, and good and bad in philosophy. The Master Key reverses the process. It is interested only in cause, and the letters received from students tell a marvelous story. They indicate conclusively that students are finding the cause whereby they may secure for themselves health, harmony, abundance, and whatever else may be necessary for their welfare and happiness. Life is expressive, and it is our business to express ourselves harmoniously and constructively. Sorrow, misery, unhappiness, disease, and poverty are not necessities, and we are constantly eliminating them. But this process of eliminating consists in rising above and beyond limitation of any kind. He who has strengthened and purified his thought need not concern himself about microbes, and he who has come into an understanding of the law of abundance will go at once to the source of supply. It is thus that fate, fortune, and destiny will be controlled as readily as a captain controls his ship or an engineer his train. All right, now we're about to get into the body of part 4, and I just want to say, I've said this before, I'll say it again, these are not my personal opinions, it's the author of this book's opinions. And also, he gets a little intense. Sometimes he's very, this is the way it is. And so please don't let that turn you off. You have to remember this is written 114 years ago, and he's trying to be motivational to people of his time. So sometimes saying things are absolutes can be a little triggering for some people. So if you're one of those people, please deal with it a little more gently because the info is still good, even though you can get a little intense sometimes. Okay, here we go. Part 4. The I of you is not the physical body. That is simply an instrument which the I uses to carry out its purposes. The I cannot be the mind, for the mind is simply another instrument which the I uses, with which to think, reason, and plan. The I, this is capital I in quotations, must be something which controls and directs both the body and the mind, something which determines what they shall do and how they shall act. When you come into a realization of the true nature of this I, you will enjoy a sense of power which you have never before known. Your personality is made up of countless individual characteristics, peculiarities, habits, and traits of character. These are the result of your former method of thinking, but they have nothing to do with the real I. When you say, I think, the I tells the mind what it shall think. When you say, I go, the I tells the physical body where it shall go. The real nature of this I is spiritual, and the source of the real power which comes to men and women, when they come into a realization of their true nature. The greatest and most marvelous power which this eye has been given is the power to think, but few people know how to think constructively or correctly. Consequently, they achieve only indifferent results. Most people allow their thoughts to dwell on selfish purposes, the inevitable result of an infantile mind. When a mind becomes mature, it understands that the germ of defeat is in every selfish thought. The trained mind knows that every transaction must benefit every person who is in any way connected with the transaction, the win-win philosophy, which I love, and any attempt to profit by the weakness, ignorance, or necessity of another will inevitably operate to his disadvantage. This is because the individual is a part of the universal. A part cannot antagonize any other part, but on the contrary, the welfare of each part depends upon a recognition of the interest of the whole. Those who recognize this principle have a great advantage in the affairs of life. They do not wear themselves out. They can eliminate vagrant thoughts with facility. They can readily concentrate to the highest possible degree on any subject. They do not waste time or money upon objects which can be of no possible benefit to them. If you cannot do these things, it is because you have thus far not made the necessary effort. Now is the time to make the effort. The result will be exactly in proportion to the effort expended. One of the strongest affirmations which you can use for the purpose of strengthening the will and realizing your power to accomplish is, I can be what I will to be. Every time you repeat it, realize who and what this I is. Try to come into a thorough understanding of the true nature of the I. If you do, you will become invincible. That is, provided that your objects and purposes are constructive and therefore in harmony with the creative principle of the universe. If you make use of this affirmation, use it continuously, night and morning, and as often during the day as you think of it, and continue to do so until it becomes a part of you, form the habit. Again, the affirmation is, I can be what I will to be. Unless you do this, you had better not start at all, because modern psychology tells us that when we start something and do not complete it, or make a resolution and do not keep it, we are forming a habit of failure, absolute, ignominious failure. If you do not intend to do a thing, do not start. If you do start, see it through even if the heavens fall. If you make up your mind to do something, do it. Let nothing, no one interfere. The I in you has determined, the thing is settled, the die is cast, there is no longer any argument. If you carry out this idea, beginning with small things which you know you can control and gradually increase the effort, but never under any circumstances allowing your I to be overruled, you will find that you can eventually control yourself. And many men and women have found to their sorrow that it is easier to control a kingdom than to control themselves. But when you have learned to control yourself, you will have found the world within which controls the world without. You will have become irresistible. People and things will respond to your every wish without any apparent effort on your part. This is not so strange or impossible as it may appear when you remember that the world within is controlled by the I, and that this I is a part or one with the infinite I, which is the universal energy or spirit, usually called God. This is not a mere statement or theory made for the purpose of confirming or establishing an idea, but it is fact, which has been accepted by the best religious thought as well as the best scientific thought. Herbert Spencer said, amid all the mysteries by which we are surrounded, nothing is more certain than that we are ever in the presence of an infinite and eternal energy from which all things proceed. Lyman Abbott, in an address delivered before the alumni of Bangor Theological Seminary, said, we are coming to think of God as dwelling in man rather than as operating on men from without. Science goes a little way in its search and stops. Science finds the ever-present eternal energy, but religion finds the power behind this energy and locates it within man. But this is by no means a new discovery. The Bible says exactly the same thing, and the language is just as plain and convincing. Know ye not that ye are the temple of the living God? Here then is the secret of the wonderful creative power of the world within. Here is the secret of power, of mastery. To overcome does not mean to go without things. Self-denial is not success. We cannot give unless we get. We cannot be helpful unless we are strong. The infinite is not a bankrupt, and we who are the representatives of infinite power should not be bankrupts either. And if we wish to be of service to others, we must have power and more power. But to get it, we must give it. We must be of service. The more we give, the more we shall get. We must become a channel whereby the universal can express activity. The universal is constantly seeking to express itself, to be of service, and it seeks the channel whereby it can find the greatest activity, where it can do the most good, where it can be of greatest service to mankind. The universal cannot express through you as long as you are busy with your plans, your own purposes. Quiet the senses, seek inspiration, focus the mental activity on the within, dwell in the consciousness of your unity with omnipotence. Still water runs deep. Contemplate the multitudinous opportunities to which you have spiritual access by the omnipresence of power. Visualize the events, circumstances, and conditions which these spiritual connections may assist in manifesting. Realize the fact that the essence and soul of all things is spiritual, and that the spiritual is the real, because it is the life of all there is. When the spirit is gone, the life is gone. It is dead. It has ceased to exist. These mental activities pertain to the world within, to the world of cause, and conditions and circumstances which result are the effect. It is thus that you become a creator. This is important work, and the higher, loftier, grander, and more noble ideals which you can conceive, the more important the work will become. Overwork or overplay or over bodily activity of any kind produces conditions of mental apathy and stagnation, which makes it impossible to do the more important work, which results in a realization of conscious power. We should, therefore, seek the silence frequently. Power comes through repose. It is in the silence that we can be still. And when we are still, we can think. And thought is the secret of all attainment. Thought is a mode of motion and is carried by the law of vibration, the same as light or electricity. It is given vitality by the emotions through the law of love. It takes form and expression by the law of growth. It is a product of the spiritual I, hence its divine, spiritual, and creative nature. From this, it is evident that in order to express power, abundance, or any other constructive purpose, the emotions must be called upon to give feeling to the thought so that it will take form. How may this purpose be accomplished? This is the vital point. How may we develop the faith, the courage, the feeling which will result in accomplishment? The reply is by exercise. Mental strength is secured in exactly the same way that physical strength is secured by exercise. We think something, perhaps with difficulty the first time. We think the same thing again, and it becomes easier this time. We think it again and again. It then becomes a mental habit. We continue to think the same thing. Finally, it becomes automatic. We can no longer help thinking this thing. We are now positive of what we think. There's no longer any doubt about it. We are sure, we know. Last week, I asked you to relax, to let go physically. This week, I'm going to ask you to let go mentally. If you practice the exercise given you last week, 15 or 20 minutes a day, in accordance with the instructions, you can no doubt relax physically. And anyone who cannot consciously do this quickly and completely is not a master of himself. He has not obtained freedom. He is still a slave to conditions. But I shall assume that you've mastered the exercise and are ready to take the next step, which is mental freedom. This week, after taking your usual position, remove all tension by completely relaxing. Then, mentally let go of all adverse conditions such as hatred, anger, worry, jealousy, envy, sorrow, trouble, or disappointment of any kind. You may say that you cannot let go of these things, but you can. You can do so by mentally determining to do so, by voluntary intention and persistence. The reason that some cannot do this is because they allow themselves to be controlled by the emotions instead of by their intellect. But those who will be guided by the intellect will gain the victory. You will not succeed the first time you try, but practice makes perfect, in this as in everything else, and you must succeed in dismissing, eliminating, and completely destroying these negative and destructive thoughts, because they are the seed which is constantly germinating into discordant conditions of every conceivable kind and description. And we end with a quote. There's nothing truer than that the quality of thought which we entertain correlates certain externals in the outside world. This is the law from which there is no escape. And it is this law, the correlative of the thought with its object, that from time immemorial has led the people to believe in special providence. By Wilmans. So, this week, you'll set your timer, put your phone on Do Not Disturb, set your timer, sit, relax like you have up until now. If you haven't seen the previous videos, go back and watch them. And then you will relax the body. And especially if you have really been doing this, you'll find that it's easier than before to do. It continually gets easier and easier. And when I do it, I find often, especially after reading this for a while and being in this state of lofty ideals and intention and self-realization and whatever, it's likely that the thought of worry, anger, jealousy, fear, resentment, whatever it is, isn't right up there at the surface. So you kind of have to scan your consciousness for it, and then you'll find it. And especially the second time I did this, it felt like in the back of my mind, my hands, my grip mentally was clutched on something, and it had been for a really long time. If you've been holding something heavy for a while and your hands kind of cramp in that position to hold it, and so you might not even realize you're doing it anymore, but then you just release that bit of resentment you had to that teacher who was really mean to you in the fourth grade, or something going on that broke your heart that you haven't really let go of, or whatever. And you're sitting there and you're the only one that's feeling this, right? So you letting something go does not have anything to do with the other person. It only sets you free. And a cool thing about this is practicing the act of letting go, practicing the act of saying, whatever, I let it go, I forgive. Not even for anyone else's benefit, just for my own health. Once you have that mental muscle flexed and you're used to using it, it's so much easier to let other stuff go. And then over time, you have this cumulative effect of just being more chill and more patient. And then reality around you kind of relaxes and things can flow easier objectively. Also, in January, in my Patreon, which if you're not already in Patreon, come join. For those of you on Patreon, love you so much. Thank you. One of the things we did was have a gratitude practice, an appreciation practice. And what I noticed in doing that is just scanning your reality for things to appreciate, then shifts your perspective so you can find more things to appreciate. It's flexing that mental muscle. And then it becomes easy to say, oh, this is lovely and that's lovely and that's lovely. Whereas usually we're just finding things to criticize because that's what we're taught to do. If it's cool and fine, leave it alone. But if there's something wrong with it, then we need to focus on it and fix it. So this practice is kind of working us through that and letting us out. Let me know what you guys think. I hope this was helpful. Like I said, it's part 4. It's the mastery system. Listen to it. The idea is to do it over and over till you get used to the action and then level up to the next chapter. And when I tell you this is a life-changing thing, I mean it. I've done it over and over for the past 14 years. And that's why I'm giving it to y'all now 14 years after using it and practicing it, because it works and it's amazing. There are 20-something chapters in all, so we're going to keep going for a while. All right, love y'all. Have a beautiful day.